Welcome, Coleman Report Live, May 18th edition, another week. Most of us are here. Lance Sexton, Coleman Faculty Instructor Extraordinaire. Lance from Arkansas, welcome.
Hey, Bob, I have one good note for everybody. I caught 2 bass yesterday that both weighed over 5.5 pounds.
And I have no idea what that means. Is that a good thing or bad thing?
That's great, Bob. I went fishing and caught 2 what us people in Arkansas call hogs. Big fish.
All right, I think we're going down a rabbit hole. We're going to move on to Katie. Katie Witecki. Katie, good to see you. And Mike Rosman, CEO, co-founder of Bowfly. Mike, welcome. It's been a while.
Thanks for having me join.
So let's see. What are we going to do first? I think we're going to Mike. Why are you here?
Well, so we're excited to join, Bob. We've done a lot with PPP for our clients. So that's connecting our small business borrowers, particularly franchisees, with lenders. We work with an array of lenders. We've been asked to kind of solve some problems for some of our clients in finding an outlet for their PPP loans. So we're going to be hosting a webinar on Thursday, 2 o'clock for your community, so they can learn about options to sell their PPP loans and or servicing.
And we offer 2 types of webinars, and we offer the ones that you pay for, the one that's going to come up on Wednesday in a couple of weeks. This is what we call a sponsored webinar. Bowfly, it's free to all attendees. Bowfly covers the cost. And what specifically will I learn from your webinar, Mike?
Sure. So it's really designed for any bank that's made PPP loans. And we're going to cover options for the bank to sell their PPP portfolio. And there's a couple different versions. You can sell it with servicing, and that's, I think, the most popular approach, which is I can eliminate this whole PPP problem from my world. I can stop talking about it. I don't have to worry about forgiveness. I don't have to worry about 1502 reporting. I don't have to worry about servicing for the next 24 months. Or if it's a special client that you want to retain servicing, then that's another option as well. Or if you already have liquidity from the Fed, you can go ahead and just outsource servicing. So we've got a kind of a small menu of options, and we're gonna walk through in good detail as to the rationale why a bank may want to go ahead and consider.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And as I said, this is on Thursday. It's a free webinar sponsored by Bowfly, so feel free to register for that. Joseph, how did they register for that webinar? Just normal?
Yeah, we'll send the link to everyone. It's a free webinar, so you just need to register.
Okay. Does the SBA need to extend the time borrowers can spend PPP loan funds? Yes, no, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, and of course, forgiveness guidelines and the forgiveness form came out over the weekend. It did not extend the time frame to spend the money. However, I am hearing, and I look forward to see the results. Okay, guys, 91% of you agree, and I'm hearing that we may see that occur, but we haven't yet.
Does your institution plan on selling your PPP loans or engage a servicer?
Hey, Bob, I think there are a lot of banks that had limited SBA experience, or a lot of institutions that had limited experience that jumped in, and this may be the webinar on Thursday may be an excellent opportunity for them to figure out how to deal with it.
There you go. There you go. 1 out of 10, which is probably your target market, right, Mike?
Yeah, and I think that probably the 22% is probably most interesting, right, is you're not sure and you want to learn more. I think what we've all learned is that PPP was set up by Congress with the best of intentions. I don't think anyone debates that. I think the program, the law they put in place, the fact that loans were rolling out 1 week later is a testament to the banking community. I think the banking community got an awful black eye for incorrect reasons. I think banks got in motion very quickly. I think the regulators caught black eyes, and I think it was inappropriate because, again, they deployed, what's the last tally, $500 billion? That's an insane amount of money in a short amount of time to go ahead and help businesses. So I think everyone was angry through the process. Bankers were angry because they weren't getting clear guidance. The SBA was angry because Congress kind of shoved it on them to go ahead and use a fairly arcane system of the SBA. And borrowers were incredibly angry because they desperately needed these funds. And so, when you kind of get into it, you say, well, I didn't know what I was getting into. And furthermore, how could I? Because the rules changed no less than 35 times, and they're still changing today. So the idea of a bank saying, well, I don't know if I want to sell, but maybe I should be open to it, I think that's exactly the target market that we're going to talk about.
Mike, I always ask this for all our guests, is overall big picture, 30,000-foot level, do you believe this is a success?
Oh, I think it's an enormous success when you consider the dollars deployed. I think the specific question and I'm really glad you guys asked it, and I'm not surprised to see that 91% of your audience believes that businesses need more time to spend that money. Who exactly knew that when Congress was debating in March that we're going to need to have those funds get out there for a period of time and then sit tight for, after 8 weeks? We're in an entire, I live in Massachusetts, and, salons still can't open. My hair's a lot longer than it normally is, and I'm anxious to get a haircut, but I can't yet. So the idea of making my barbershop not get forgiven, it's not appropriate considering the fact that they can't open for business. And I think the SBA is aware of it. I think Congress is aware, and I think that'll be solved.
Are your restaurants open in Massachusetts?
Only for delivery, right? So and the Governor Baker just issued a new set of rules today, which we've all been waiting on, and they're still not ready to reopen. So again, they're being very deliberative. We've had real issues here with COVID, and the governor, I think, from my standpoint, is behaving responsibly. It's a disaster for the economy, and it's a disaster for a small business owner. But it will open in due course. The hope is that these businesses can survive longer.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was an article, Open Table said 25% of all restaurants will not reopen. They're out of business. So it's just terrible. Lance, over the weekend, we got the application. My first question is this the total guidance? Are we expecting more? Let's start with there.
We're expecting more guidance. I've had a conversation with a unnamed SBA employee about forgiveness because this popped out over the weekend. I immediately spent quite a few hours in the wee hours of the morning reviewing this, and then spent some time on Saturday with it. And this is the basics of the conversation with my friend at SBA. He said, in every aspect of PPP, what Mike was talking about, they've done a great job because they've had to rush something out. They didn't have time to sit back like they do on the SBA SOP 5010-6 and take 6 months to write it and let somebody review it and let people comment. Yeah. They didn't have time. This, to be effective, to be impactful, it had to come out quickly. The same thing with forgiveness. Forgiveness was late, but now we have some sort of idea of what forgiveness is going to be. Now, it's not perfect. I had hoped for a little simpler forgiveness for the smaller deals. And what I've been told, and Mike and Bob, we've all talked about this, we're probably going to see some additional changes in forgiveness. But the great thing is finally we have something to sit down and talk to borrowers about. The borrowers now have a form and an idea of what type of documentation needs to be collected.
Well, and the lenders,
financial institutions now have an idea of what they're going to need to look at on the forgiveness piece. There were a few things that were added, and we're going to talk about this on the webinar on Wednesday. There are a few things that have been added to the forgiveness piece in this form that'll be very helpful to small businesses. There's two things I'd hope for, Bob. One, the spend the money period would have been expanded, which I think eventually it will be. And two, I had hoped for, Bob, for the sole proprietor who got a $2,000 PPP loan, we would have had something simpler to use for forgiveness, and we may still see that.
Let's bring Katie into the conversation. Katie, what can you add?
Well, looking forward, I think Lance is right on. We're probably going to see some more guidance here coming up. I know the Treasury did report saying that the SBA would come out with some more guidance on this. So I don't know when we're going to get that, but at least we have something right now to start working off of. And I think this is what we really need, the baseline first, and then we can start maybe getting something simpler or just more guidance in general further down the road.
Katie, you tell us what your reporting is these days. What are you working on?
So I'm working on a story right now about how the small business aid program is expected to be revised. And we've kind of all been tiptoeing around the subject, but basically what Treasury was hinting at is we're going to see more flexibility with how the PPP loans are going to be allowed to be spent, maybe adjusting that 75% to something else, which Rubio said is not going to need like legal action to do. We're able to do that without taking it all the way back to Congress. The other change that they're considering is extending the time to use those funds, which was something else we were just discussing that would be very helpful for some of these small businesses. As Mike was saying, some of the businesses are not able to open yet, and we're already more than halfway through some of the funding. So really, that's going to be another consideration. However, that will need to go back through Congress to make a change. So that we're probably going to see much later, or not anytime real soon, but they are considering that.
This is for all three of you. Feel free to jump in. Have you ever seen Congress, despite all the nastiness, more bipartisan than on this subject?
Bob, we have seen things happen during time frames. I mean, the amount of money that got pushed out there is absolutely. Our children and our grandchildren will probably read in history books about the PPP loan program. Honest to goodness.
Yeah.
Congress has acted. Yeah. This is, we're living a historical event that people will read about in the future. And
or interesting times, yes.
But the thing is, Bob, I'd like to sit back and complain about all different aspects of PPP, but I'm not going to, because had we taken the time to get it right before it got pushed out, all these businesses we're talking about, it'd have been too late. So, Congress.
I'm a full, yeah, they had to cut some corners and not everyone's happy, but they got the, can you imagine, they got the money out. Can you imagine if PPP was going to fund next week?
Yeah, we would already have catastrophic closings throughout the country. And again, Congress has done a great job. The SBA has done an amazing job, and financial institutions have done an amazing job too. Everybody deserves a pat on the back. And I hear about, and I respect, and essential workers are so important. But I got to be honest with you, I think the participant lenders, the SBA, are essential workers, because we're doing something essential to keeping our economy alive.
Very good. No, I agree. I made the comment, and I sort of stick to it. I don't think our government has moved this fast since World War II. You guys can comment on that if you want.
Well, Bob, I'll just add, I think you're entirely right. I think when you look at what the government's done, even as it relates to, and we can debate whether it happened fast enough in general, but, the Defense Act, right, of actually saying, well, we're going to actually go ahead and have GM start making ventilators, right? That's not light stuff. Taking over, requiring a manufacturer to go ahead and retool. But that's exactly what happened to the banking system, right? They said, you're going to stop your entire business for the next 4 weeks while you just focus on PPP loans, regardless of whether you're an SBA lender or not. And the weight that the banks have taken on is enormous. People working, I know you, Lance, I'm sure it was the case for you. The banks we were working with worked all through Easter, all through Passover. They were working with, and keep in mind, they're being affected by the same pandemic that's impacting these small businesses, right? So everyone's working from home. Banks don't work well from home, Bob, right? So the idea of regulators don't like it when people can go ahead and log in and do things from their home. So I think banks deserve an enormous amount of credit. I think the piece that we're looking at right now is, can I do another marathon? Originating the 500 loans for a bank is a marathon, working with very stressed borrowers in a shifting rule environment. That's exactly the reason why some of our bank partners have said, hey, Mike, can you find me a home for these loans? Because I don't want to do forgiveness, and I don't want to go through the next set of rule changes. And if you can go ahead and get me out of this, I'd like to, which makes sense.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Let's see. Let's go to the next slide, Joseph. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back. Go back. I don't. Katie, did you address these issues, these numbers?
No, I can real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
The real big part of this article that came out this morning was that 80% of small businesses now anticipate that the COVID-19 pandemic will continue to impact their business for the next 12 to 16 months. And that's really something I think a lot of us didn't expect going into this. And I think Congress wasn't quite sure what to expect. And that's why, you know, we didn't have this, we only have the 8 weeks. We don't have it going on for months and months and months. And
I want to know who the 7% are who have their head in the sand who said this isn't going to affect them. I want to know what those businesses are.
well, I'm
They're
sure
selling
there
masks.
Well, I just want to comment. There are businesses that have not been impacted the same way. Trucking companies are an example. Trucking companies are running at 100% plus of capacity, trying to get goods to different retail stores in different places. Another example is it's always when you have a recession, tobacco, firearms, and alcohol, liquor stores are seeing increases. And even in the restaurant industry, a great example, we've all had a Domino's pizza in our lifetime. Domino's Pizza is one of the few companies in the country that had an increase in revenue in April compared to 2019 April. So there are businesses that are doing okay.
One of my best friends in the industry said, I love dealing with C stations who serve the 3 food groups, nicotine, alcohol, and caffeine.
Well, Bob, I've had the pleasure of talking to 2 or 3 different liquor store owners, and they all have experienced increases in revenue because so many people are sitting home. They're barbecuing, they're drinking. So there are some businesses that are going to be impacted in a positive way. But I do agree with the fact that it's going to take a year or more for this to, because what are we going to do? You know, we've had all this PPP and other things that support and try to keep unemployment down, but unemployment, you know, the official number, is 17, 18%, but the unofficial number is much higher. We still need those people to go back to work. We need unemployment, you know, down below 5%.
Mm-hmm.
0.3 and 90% of small businesses are bracing for an economic slowdown. Lance and I have been preaching for the last 5 years. We're not predicting when the next recession is, but it will happen. He and I are definitely not going to say we told you so, but we're here, right, Lance?
Mike, we've been talking to our participants over the last 18 months about honing up on their servicing and liquidation skills in preparation for the next recession. And when you look, Mike and I were talking, a friend of Mike's, an old friend of mine whose name is Alvin. This reminds me of when I first met him years ago during the recession in 2008, 2009. But Bob and I have been telling everybody we need to get ready, but we never hoped for or anticipated anything like what we was, was occurred.
Email question, Lance, go ahead.
The clarification on loan payments made on loans done prior, construction loans. I have not seen the clarification either on how those existing, SBA's agreed to make 6 loan payments for all the existing SBA loan customers. In addition to that, any new SBA loans done between now and the end of SBA's fiscal year, they'll get the advantage of those 6 payments too. The question is, how does that relate to a construction loan? And I'm going to be honest with you, it may have come out, but I've not seen any clarity on or guidance on that.
Very good. All right, let's recap where we are on webinars. We're going to have we're offering a 2-part webinar series, one on Wednesday and one 2 weeks from Wednesday. Whoever signs up for you get both of them, because we're anticipating Lance is going to go through Wednesday on the application, the forgiveness. Then we're anticipating further guidance, so feel free. For the one registration fee, you get both those webinars. And then Mike is going to be doing his on Thursday, which is sponsored. It is free. Feel free to take advantage of that. and he's going to talk about options that you have for selling your portfolio. Right, Mike?
That's right. Yeah, we'll go right through that, as well as if you want to go ahead and keep it, if you have enough liquidity, you can engage a servicer.
Very good. And we have, we're coming out with our year-end reports. I got a couple questions, and we're going to hold those over to tomorrow. Deanne and Galen, so bear with me on that. We'll do those tomorrow. And with that, you know, I like to start on time and stop on time. And Katie, Lance, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We had Lance, I'm looking at the numbers. We had a record attendance today.
Outstanding.
Thank you
Hey,
all for your support.
one quickie, Bob. The NAICS report, I used it when processing PPP loans because I'd get a rogue NAICS number. And instead of looking up on another source, I'd just pull up the Coleman report, do a Control F or whatever it was. And that's how I did that.
Very good. Thank you all for joining us. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.